Hi friends, welcome back to Nobody Knows podcast, dedicated to the ones who are still trying to figure it all out in life. I hope you're doing well. This is your first time listening, hello, and thanks so much for tuning in. I'm Juliana, and I'm a 29-year-old who has consistently felt lost in life and like I've always been behind as I navigated my 20s. I created Nobody Knows to share my experiences and advice in hopes that we can relate to one another and to normalize that we're all just doing our best to find our way. We also have guests on here from time to time to spice things up, offer a new perspective, knowledge, and expertise of just figuring it all out. If you have been loving this podcast and this is not your first time around, hello, welcome back. Thanks so much for tuning in again. I would love it if you are following on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, maybe even YouTube, and I would definitely appreciate your feedback for Nobody Knows podcast. And the best way to show your support is either through a 5-star review on either listening platform, or you can write to me directly on either Instagram at Nobody Knows Podcast or on TikTok at Nobody Knows Podcast followed by an _. And lastly, something I've announced a few episodes back is that we now have a website. So if you click on the show notes where it says Let's Be Friends, that'll bring you to our new and improved flashy website. She's gorgeous. I love her very much. You can sign up for our newsletter there too. I haven't done anything yet, but in the future, that's the plan, to get it a newsletter, so be sure to sign up for that, and that will give you updates eventually about new episodes, special guests, and exclusive updates. So let's kick things off with our listener submission. So we haven't done a listener submission in a while. This sort of segment, I still don't have a title for it. I don't know what to call it. A lot of other podcasts I listen to where they have a segment that they do every episode, they have something cute and catchy, and I'm still not to be right on the nose or on the money, still trying to figure out what the heck to call it. But essentially every episode we do something that brings us further together and normalizes that none of us have anything figured out. And sometimes we'll review a Reddit submission, something from a random stranger, but like touches close to like self-help, personal growth, career development, relationships, whether they're friendship or romantic, mental health, anything along those lines. It's kind of fair game, and I think we could figure out together, or we might be going through it. I will share something like that. Another time we'll hear from you listeners, which we'll do today. And again, similar life experiences, but I think it's even more meaningful because it's coming from you. You're going through this, so it's even more important that we figure it out because again, we're all in this together. To that point, my DMs are always open if you're ever interested to share something on the pod of what you're figuring out. It also doesn't have to be like you figured it out. It could just be, I'm going through this and this is a problem. What do you think? Or maybe we can open it up to listeners and they can comment and give you feedback that way too. I'm determined to help us sort through our shit. So if you ever want to actually come on the pod, have your experience shared, we can be anonymous. We can also add your name to it. My DMs are always open. And lastly, sometimes we need to do internal reflection, and we've done that quite a few times in the past few episodes. It was very warranted for the times and what was going on the past few weeks. But I always love a journal prompt because sometimes we don't have the answers, and we find them, I feel, when we take a pause and we do some journaling or we just do some like mental reflection. Sometimes sitting in silence helps us get to those answers. So I always like to do a journal prompt every now and then too. So today we're hearing a listener submission, and it's from one of our listeners, Kirsty. And she wrote that she's still figuring out things not going accordingly to her plan, which, that sounds like me. So I was very eager and interested to share this with you because I think some aspect of Kirsty's story will ring true to everyone. She wrote that she dropped out of university after only having one life plan, and that one life plan was to be a doctor. That is a heavy realization or decision to make in your life, especially when it's like a doctor or something that a position that's so esteemed, so highly looked at. Also, you have to do a lot of work to get there to make that decision that that's no longer what you want. I think that there's like added pressure and probably grief of coming to that realization. But no matter what goal you are aspiring to in life, or if you realize that you no longer want it or that it's just not meant for you, whatever the reason is, you need to remind yourself that people change, and that includes you. First off, just take the pressure off of yourself for realizing, oh my God, I don't want to do this anymore. Like that in and of itself, that's okay. And I know it doesn't seem okay when you've been working towards this one life goal and your whole vision for where you were going to be when you were old and gray was that you're going to be a retired doctor or whatever, right? Like your doctor piece is going to be tied to your identity, and you realize that that's not what you want anymore. That's okay. You were not wrong to have a life goal and to work towards it, and you're still not wrong for deciding that that's not what's meant for you now. In fact, you're probably better off to realize it now, or whenever in your life you realize it. Whenever you have the like, oops, I don't think that this is meant for me. Perfect. That's great that you're even thinking about it and you're not just like falling in line and doing what external pressures or internal pressures are telling you to just keep moving forward to hit the goal. It is never too late to change your life, but it will definitely be easier the sooner you realize what you do or you don't want to do. This submission made me think of that awful interview question. I mean, there's a lot of terrible interview questions, but when you're going for a job and you have your interview set up and they always say, so what's your 3 or like your 5 year or like your 10-year, that is just ridiculous. Your 5-year plan and where do you see yourself? For not knowing a whole lot, I have always said that question is shit. That's crap. It's just so unfair to ask someone that, and especially tying it to like getting a job. But I'm not saying that you shouldn't have goals, but I think it's unrealistic to believe that you're going to achieve said goals in a specific amount of time, or even further to answer the interviewer's question with like a specific strategy or a series of set steps. And like that is the only way you're going to achieve the goal. I feel like that question really pigeonholes us into doing things one way or having a one-track mindset of like achieving something. Life is unpredictable. It's messy, and sometimes you wake up and realize the past 10 years of you wanting to be a doctor is just not for you. And like I said, that's okay. So my advice, again, take this with a grain of salt, would be to throw the 5-year, 10-year, 3-year plan out the window, or that pressure that you need to stick to the plan, just toss it out the window. Again, much easier said than done. There's a lot of conditioning, there's a lot of core beliefs, there's a lot of mental gunk that you got to work through to achieve that and like actually not worry about the plan. But acknowledging it is the first step, and acknowledging that you don't want to do this anymore is the first step to actually figuring out what you do want to do and being happy and content with your life choices. And like I said, with the mental gunk, there's going to be a lot of feelings that come up with realizing you no longer want what you previously thought you wanted, and that is valid. All of those feelings that you're going to feel are totally valid. Feel them. And then once you've moved on from feeling all of those feels, in a way it is like grieving, but be proud of yourself that you did not stick to a life goal simply because your younger self or whoever else wanted this for you told you that that's what you needed to do. It's okay to change your mind, and it's okay to be messy. And props to you for making this decision and saying, you know what, I would rather take the messy, figuring it out era of my life versus doing a job that I have the training to do or have learned or taken the steps to actually learn it, but realized, you know what, that's not for me anymore. Okay, let's hop into today's topic. I have a iced coffee, I think, but then I think Brendan got it for me, so I don't even know what I have. I just told him to get me a coffee, but I think he got me an iced coffee from Tim's with an espresso shot, which is 10 out of 10, I must say. The thing is, I'm an iced coffee girly through and through. 365 days a year, 24/7, I will have an iced coffee. But at like Tim's or McDonald's, even if I go to the States and I go to like Dunkin', the iced coffees now are just too watered down. Same with lattes even. They're just like too milky, not enough coffee. So I feel like adding an espresso shot actually gets that coffee flavor back, as well as like gives me some energy. Again, it's caffeine. It's like toxic, like whatever. But it does the trick and it tastes delicious. So if you're also in that bandwagon of like, oh my gosh, my coffee these days is just like not hitting the spot, try adding an espresso shot. It's good. So today's topic, I've been planning to talk about this for a while now, but other topics kept coming up. You know, Taylor Swift tours kept popping up on my schedule. What can I say? Sorry. I know that the Eras Tour is very contentious. It is highly problematic what Ticketmaster is and does. My one friend was trying to get tickets for the last weekend, and the resale prices, astronomical. Disgusting. All of these bots just bought up all the Ticketmaster tickets and then resold them. So gross. But like I always say, to today's topic, I was a little bit busy. So I never got a chance to really bang out this episode. And today we finally get to. So today's episode is for anyone that gets caught in the comparison trap. Maybe you're a business owner, a content creator. Maybe you're just always comparing yourself to your friends or your family or your favorite content creators that you see on social media. And you want to stop this cycle of comparing yourself and just be happy. If you're a business owner, you might feel paralyzed to move forward with your business or just do some self-improvement. If you're a content creator, maybe you see your competitors so much further along than you and that they're more successful than you. I can definitely put my hand up and say that this is where I stand in terms of this episode topic. Like, I struggle a lot to make more content rather than the content that I consume. Like, I have been on a doom scrolling spiral, obviously, since the election. And I've not really had good boundaries of being like, okay, I'm going to put my phone away and I'm going to create content instead. Tess Barclay, if you ever follow her, Busy Blooming, she is such a good content creator, by the way. But she always says you should consume less content compared to the amount of content that you create if you are interested in being a content creator. And I'm struggling with that right now. I'm not as inspired. Of course, it always ebbs and flows, but I just feel like it's so much easier to consume other people's content. But then when I do that and I know that I'm putting off my content and I'm hard on myself for that initially, and then I start to see other people's content and consume more and more, then I start to critique myself and be like, I can't even do that, or look how consistent they are. They're so much more successful than I am. All the awful things that you would say. And that's definitely where I am right now in terms of the comparison trap. And so I need this episode as a reminder to myself to just stay in my own lane and admire the art that other people create, but also admire my own art and give myself credit and not compare myself to other people. Or, after that long-winded tangent, maybe you're watching your friends and they have like a massive house and you're still in your like one-bedroom apartment. Especially in our late 20s. Groups of friends are in completely different areas of their life. Some friends are pregnant. Some friends are partying till 3 o'clock in the morning. Slay. Some people are working 50, 60 hours a week. Get your bag, girl. You know, like, there's just so many differences where friends are, and so it can be really, really difficult not to compare, particularly if you want the same things and your friends might be achieving it faster than you. Whatever it is, you wonder what is the point of you trying or even try to continue to progress, and you're not sure of what you bring to the table. If you are feeling like this at all, this episode is for you. Like I said, I felt this in so many different aspects of my life with my friends, but specifically with growing the podcast. But this one trick has allowed me to refocus on myself, both in my personal life and again with the pod. And it helps me tune out the noise that is of no service to me. Today we're going to talk about, drumroll please, why muting your competition can actually be beneficial to your overall success. And I literally do this all the time. And my best friends know this. I will say, oh, I just went on an unfollowing spree or just like a muting spree. I will just go on my personal Instagram and unfollow people, being like, what do they really, I don't want to say bring a value to me, but in the same sense of like, if I'm going to see their content and their life on my feed, am I getting joy out of that? Like, am I rooting them on, or am I just like following them in spite because I'm like, oh my God, I'm very jealous of them? You know what I mean? There's two sides of every coin. So when it comes to my personal Instagram, I'm always managing my follower list or who I'm following. And I like to say I keep things fair. If I unfollow someone and they're following me, I just remove them as a follower. Because I'm like, that's not really fair. I've just unfollowed you, but you can still follow me. So I always just do them the courtesy of removing their follow. But I'll tell you, when I do this, specifically on my personal Instagram, I feel like a wave of relief because it's like, and I don't have that anxiety about posting or who's going to see my shit and like judge me, even though they probably won't. Again, that's probably my own ego. Remove, block, mute, whatever. And you might be thinking that this is a bit extreme or a bit harsh. And you're right, in a way. It's also like how much time do you have in your day to be thinking about this? But let's be real. Everyone is on their phones, again, 24/7, 365. And social media is a very big part of majority of people's lives, including me. And it is my right to control who sees my content or who follows me. I'm going to pay specific attention to it. I will mute them. or I will block them, or I will unfollow them. Whatever tool I think fits the specific content creator, I will do it. And this does not speak to them. This speaks to me. This speaks to my insecurities. I'm well aware of that. But like I said, I need to control what I see on my phone and on my feed. And this is the tool that helps me the best. Because muting them, blocking them, unfollowing them, whatever it may be, it forces me to stop fixating on them. And then now I can actually have some peace, canceling out the noise, and can refocus that energy on myself. Another way I've done this too is taking a break from social media. So there'll be a few times a year, or once a year at least, where I'll just go a month without social media. It's a little bit harder now that we have the podcast and we promote the podcast on TikTok and Instagram. But back in my personal days when it was just my own Instagram, I would go several times without going on Instagram for a month or however long it suited me, just to almost sage my brain. Because social media can be a lot. We get so many pieces of information in such a short amount of time that it can be incredibly overwhelming. Not to mention that everyone only posts the highlight reels of their life. So all that information we're consuming can be extremely misleading, especially when you're down in the dumps, when it feels like nothing's going right in life and you just see this one person that you idolize seem to have everything going right for them. It's really challenging. So before you go on a blocking spree or muting spree, the first thing we need to do in deciding if that is going to be beneficial to you is to determine where your focus is. And I feel like being aware of this is a bit of a spectrum. So there is healthy observation, which would be considered, market research if you're a business owner, or that feeling of joy when you see your favorite content creator achieve something online. You're like, oh my God, congratulations. I am so over the moon for you. It's objective. I mean, it's kind of hard when it's content creators and it's personal because it's feelings that you feel and you are slightly biased, but you feel pure joy for them, pure happiness. But you're more so observant. You're not inputting yourself into the equation and saying, well, they just got a Range Rover, but I'm still driving a 10-year-old car. You're simply just happy for them. Or even worse, that opportunity worked out for them, but not for me. There's something I must be doing wrong. You are observing passively to see what possibilities are out there, but understanding that one measure of success is not the end-all be-all way to achieve success, and that it can look differently for you. And just because they are benefiting or being successful does not mean that you will never be successful. And then on the opposite side of the spectrum, it's more toxic, very spiteful, hateful, and it becomes too fixated. This is when it's coming from a place of insecurity and you're inputting yourself or your business into the equation of your competitors. You're following their every move. You might feel the need to compare yourself to them to determine where you rank in comparison and how you could be or are better in order to feel better about yourself. This is really no good because then you're allowing someone else to dictate your value. And it's distracting because it takes energy and effort away from your own passions and goals. I can't tell you the amount of times when I have felt like that, doom scrolling on social media, looking at all these amazing content creators, people who are running podcasts, and all the anger and the nasty feelings that I feel, that by the time I'm done, I'm exhausted that I can't put any energy into my own work. And that's a really weird way to hurt me, right? And inflict pain. And it further curbs your creativity because you will eventually start to compare everything that you do in your own business, in your own personal life, in your podcast, content creation, whatever it is, because they are the goal. Everything that they do is like God. And you start to have a bit of a bias of what's good and what's not good based off this other person who has no actual effect in your real life. But as I mentioned, there are 1,000,001 ways to accomplish a goal, and we shouldn't all be going about it the same way. We need to consistently remember that we need to do what's best for us. You have a certain life experience and a certain path, and what might work for one person to get that Range Rover is not going to work for you to get the Range Rover. So if you've determined where you sit within the spectrum, if you're more observant, maybe you don't need to unfollow people. Maybe this is motivation to help you do more, just give you some sort of inspiration of like what might work well for you or what might not work well for you. But if you're leaning more on the obsessive side of the spectrum, then it could be beneficial to mute your competition that you constantly creep every day, and that is taking valuable time out of your day. And as I said at the beginning, I will advocate for people to set boundaries, and that still applies on social media. It might be harsh, it might be, oh my God, why is she so concerned about who's following her, who she's following? It's my feed, it's your feed. Treat it how you like. Set it up for success. You are consuming all that content every single day. Set those boundaries, babe. And I'm not entirely sure if you can mute people apart from on Instagram. Instagram has so many different features to like filter people out, which is great. You can mute someone, you can restrict someone. I'm not really sure the differences of restricting and muting. You can block people outright, and you can also unfollow. Lots of different tools at your disposal. Have fun. So for today's purpose, I'm going to just be talking about Instagram, but each channel that you're on, social channel that you're on, there will be tools that you can use. And I do really like the ability to mute people. I'm going to say this flat out right now. There are lots of content creators on my podcast account that I have muted right now. Again, my own insecurities. I just don't want to get derailed from what I want to put out there, because the person I might have muted, we're talking about very similar things, and they're doing a great job, and I actually really applaud and admire their work, but I don't want to become fixated on what they're doing, because then that takes away from what we're doing here. But I still follow them, because maybe one day I will be so set in my ways of like what we're doing here that I will love to just see what they're doing and be in that observant mindset of like just wanting to applaud them and be like, way to go. At the very root of everything, underneath all the insecurities, I do want to root them on, and that's why I haven't outright unfollowed them. And they won't even know if you've muted them. That's the beauty of it. You can also toggle it on and off at your discretion. So let's say one day you're feeling really great, and then the next day you're not. Bing, bang, boom, you can just turn it on and off as you please. Instagram changes their UI design like literally every 24 hours, and I needed a refresher on how to mute someone, so I've linked the instructions in the show notes should you also need them. Whether you do or you don't decide to mute someone on your socials, the next thing to figure out is what makes you unique. This is the next natural step, because let's say you do mute people, now things are going to be a lot quieter for you. Like, thank God. There's nothing worse than just all of that noise and not being able to hear your own thoughts. You're not going to have your competitors shoving their agenda or what they're doing in your face anymore, and you can finally focus on yourself. So you need to figure out what makes you unique. Once you decide to unmute people, if you so choose, figuring out what makes you unique is going to be your superpower, as cheesy as that sounds. And just like everyone has their own individual path in life of achieving their goals, so does everyone in terms of what makes them unique. There are so many wonderful things about you as a person that will resonate with others in a way that your competitor cannot. If you've ever seen UGC creators uplifting other creators, they're all going to say the same thing, that the market is not oversaturated because there's only one you. And again, this could apply personally. There's only one you in your group of friends. There's only one you when you're a business owner in your specific business. You have a unique way of looking at the world. You have unique experiences and beliefs that will help you connect with your intended audience. And chances are some of those will be different and set you apart from your competitors. But again, tying back to muting your competition, it will be harder to determine what those beliefs, experiences, and viewpoints are with your competitors in your ear and on your timeline, shaping your input. So let's do a real life exercise. If I were to look at myself and ask what makes me and nobody knows unique, I'm experiencing life just as my audience, just as we are together. And I'm giving you my raw truth and experiences that we're all going through. I can relate to all of you because I am you. I go through the same things that you go through. And even though my competitors share that same value prop of they are also going through the same things as us, the way that we share that with our communities will be very different. I try to come from an empathetic, humorous, even though some people don't find me funny, I think I'm kind of funny, like laid back, easygoing point of view. Whereas some of my other competitors that I've noticed, they really lean into their humor, or they want to come off as more aspirational. And that is wonderful because it works for them and it's authentic to them. Just like everything that makes me me is authentic to me. And anyone who is interested in self-help topics that wants more of an aspirational view will go to one of my competitors. But anyone who wants more of like an easygoing, down-to-earth view, they might come to me. So what makes you unique? Literally take a second, take several seconds, get a journal. This is an impromptu journal prompt. What makes you unique? Write it down, think about it, take some time to think about it, come back to it, sit on it, and really focus on how you stand apart from those you've been comparing yourself to. And the best part is, if you need this in future and you've journaled it, then you can refer back to it when you are feeling insecure in the future and you're kind of unsure of what you're doing or like what makes you stand out. Lastly, I'll leave you with some food for thought or play the devil's advocate here. Side note, I literally just had to do like 10 takes of that sentence because I could not say it properly. I literally felt like that was the hardest thing to say. But we got through it. Anyways, when you're in the right headspace, let's say you've muted someone and have worked on yourself, you've determined what your unique skills and offerings are, and you're no longer coming from a place of jealousy or comparison, then fostering connection with your competitors can actually be a really good thing and also lead to your success. The more you embrace your competition and find ways to celebrate and create relationships with each other, the more success you'll enjoy. Because think about it, when we're on the spectrum again and we're coming from a place of observation, we are not inputting ourselves into our competitors or their lives or what they've got going on. When we come from a place of observation and just take ourselves out of it, it can help us hone in and make us smarter, faster, and keep us on our toes. And at the end of the day, that is what good, healthy competition is all about. Competition fosters creativity, responsiveness, and agility. And let's say I were to connect with my competitors. As I mentioned, we all bring something unique to the table. So when we combine our individual qualities, we're contributing to something even greater at the end of the day. Who knows? Maybe that will happen in the near future. You never know. And by doing so, you're showcasing your strengths to your competitors. And let's say there's an opportunity that comes their way that does not embrace their strengths, but rather yours. If you've already fostered that connection with them, who do you think they're going to pass that opportunity along to? You. So at the very least, figure out what kind of headspace you're in. If you're constantly comparing yourself to others, then perhaps it's worth to explore muting competitors. Just give yourself a break. You don't have to do it for forever, maybe just a short period of time. And as a final reminder, you're always going to have competitors, no matter what. There will always be people who seem to have it all together or people better than you. That's life, unfortunately. And even if you try to mute everyone, again, boundaries, that's up to you if you want to do it. That urge that you want to compare will still remain. So it doesn't matter if you've gotten everyone off your followers and you have no followers left. You're still going to feel that urge to compare. So it's more valuable to remind yourself of what you offer, what makes you unique, and that you're in a league all on your own. And lastly, that even if someone else has got it going on, that does not take away anything from you. So if you've enjoyed this episode, please share it with someone else. Maybe share it with a friend. Maybe it's your co-business owner that you're both realizing you're caught in the comparison trap. Share it with someone who might be struggling right now, and all they really need to do is just mute someone and do some internal reflection. And as always, make sure you're following on Apple Podcasts, YouTube, and Spotify. And let's connect on Instagram at Nobody Knows Podcast and on TikTok at Nobody Knows Podcast, followed by an underscore. And until next time, friends, bye. Slay.